My name's Simon Dickinson. I'm a BIM Technical Manager for Graitec in the UK. Plenty of experience of CAD and Revit over the years, and very much an advocate of BIM and the BIM process. Okay. So, the Revit PowerPack, what exactly is it? Yeah, it is actually a suite of tools that enhance existing functionality. It doesn't necessarily add new functionality to the software and things that the software has never been able to do, but it streamlines the way in which these tools work. It helps us to become more productive and basically gives us a whole range of tools to help to speed up our day-to-day use of the software. It's currently only compatible with Revit 2016. That's Revit 1 box, the one that comes with the Building Design Suite, Revit Architecture, Revit MEP, and Revit Structures. It is not supported on Revit LT. This is down to the fact that Revit LT has no API, which means we can't actually write any plugins to work on Revit LT. It's Autodesk's way of making sure we don't add back in the functionality that they've actually taken out by making it a light product in the first place. Okay. So hopefully the fact that you've all managed to sign up for this webinar is because you've actually received the invitation email. Now, within that invitation, there was obviously the link to this webinar, but there was also the link to the downloads, etc. Now, hopefully, in the next couple of days, you should receive, if you haven't already done, an email that's actually come through from Graitec.authorizations. This will contain your serial number and your activation code for the PowerPack. Okay, so we're sending this out to everyone that's got their subscription with Graitec. This is basically our way of saying thank you for basically using us as your supplier. So these tools are specifically given to you as a thank you for supporting us. If after the end of this presentation you've got any questions, feel free to drop me a line. Also, if there's any other functionality of any of the tools that you want to go back and re-look at, within the user manual, which is also listed in that welcome email, so there's actually a link to this in there. We actually have a link to all our videos. So basically on this particular link, you can actually go back in and there's all the videos for every single part and every single tool that we've actually got within the PowerPack. Okay. So I'll go through the tools in the PowerPoint and then I'll actually show you how they work. So the first tool that I'll be showing you is the Family Manager. And the Family Manager is a really useful tool. If you've got your own internal libraries for Revit, this will actually give you the ability to not only put that into a central library where we can actually access it, but we can load multiple objects from the libraries at the same time. It will then also ask me, out of the libraries that I'm loading, which sizes I want. Now, the one thing that Revit normally does is if you haven't got a type catalog in there, it will automatically load every single family type and size that's available in that family. That could be 10 different sizes when you only need is 3. This will actually allow us to actually structure the way in which we fetch families into Revit, so we can really control what we want and what we don't want. We've got a tool in here as well for Move XY. We can always move left, we can move right, we can move up, we can move down. But if you want to accurately move diagonally, so left and right at the same time, it's always been very hard. It's been a two-step operation. And what the Move XY does is it allows us to actually do that in one operation. So we can put the dimensions in and it'll move that object. Okay, and it's got abbreviations just like Revit has as well, so it doesn't have to be in millimeters. We can set it into what we need as well. Okay. We've got a door side tool. Now this will allow us to list the door side for every door that's currently loaded in our project. And the first time you use this, it'll show all the doors as red. The second time you use it, all the doors which it has already reported back on will go black, and only new doors that have been loaded into the project afterwards will go red, so you can double check that the handling of them doors is the way that you would actually want it to be. If, as you can see on the graphic there, it's a double door, of course it's not handed because they open both directions. We've got a 3D CAD visibility tool. Now this is really clever because if we actually import any 3D CAD blocks into Revit, we can actually now convert them directly into Revit families. So it's a really quick way of getting an object in. They're not going to be parametric. It's just going to be the CAD block, but it will turn it into a Revit object. It means we can start to add additional family parameters to there and other information to that CAD block. We've also got an ability to update that as well. So if the AutoCAD block gets updated, the 3D CAD block, we can actually force it to update the geometry directly into our family within Revit as well. We've added some additional parameters. Now, these are parameters that a lot of people have been asking for a while. So these are just additional parameters that actually not only added to different types of families like columns and walls, but they're also schedulable. So we can then start to schedule that information out. So something like column height, it's never been a value that we've been able to pull out. Now we can. A wall height, wall thickness, etc. Being able to tag and list the information about where the sill height is and the full lintel elevation. We've not had that information taggable. This adds parameters automatically that we can then start to pull this data back out of. We've got one for slab elevation as well. Okay, so there's a few ones in there, and I'll show you how they work in a second as well. 3D displacement. Now, we've had the displacement tool in Revit for a few years now, but to use it, you've basically got to select an object, choose displace element, you then move that to the location, you select your next element. This basically does it automatically. It allows us to take a 3D view and explode the entire drawing in one click. Really useful. Okay. There's a couple of other views in there as well, again, which I'll show you in a second as well. Split pipes and ducts. One of the things that Revit, particularly from the MEP side of view, is really good at is actually putting the design of our ductwork in. The thing it's not very good at is actually breaking it down into the number of maybe fabrication parts that we need. Now, we have started to introduce fabrication tools into Revit 2016 anyway, but if you're still using the old way of working, then this will allow us to break down our pipes and ductworks into specific pipe lengths. And there's a little bit of intelligence when it comes to pipes on how it then rejoins these pipe lengths as well. And I'll show you how that works as well. It's very clever. We've got some dimensioning enhancements. Yeah, dimensioning is very, very good and very powerful in Revit, and there's some nice features for doing it quickly. We've just given you a load more tools to do it even faster. So we've got an auto dimensioning tool where we can select an object and it will auto dimension objects. We've got a quick dimension tool which takes a line which we can draw a model line directly through objects. Every object that touches it will then start to dimension for us. We can join dimensions, so if we've got dimensions that are actually being drawn at multiple times, we can then join them into an entire string, which is editable afterwards. We can also configure this as well, so we've got a configuration tool in there which will actually give us the control over which dimension style, what's the font. We might have multiple different dimension styles, but when it comes to doing the auto dimensioning, which font, which actual dimension style is it that we're actually wanting, and we can change that between the auto dimension, the quick dimension, and the join dimension, so you can actually have different styles for that as well. We've got a stair line, and again, this is something that's been requested to us by users. The fact that by default Revit will only actually draw the stair line up to where the split is. So basically, depending on your view range, depends on where the split line goes. And so you can see on the left-hand side there, the line only goes 4 stairs, 4 rises, whereas we've got a tool now that will actually put the whole run in. So it will actually put a line in from the bottom to the top with the direction listed as well. Legends, probably one of my favorite tools in the PowerPack. Legends have always been very good in Revit. Obviously, a legend can be used to show what different symbols mean on our drawing, but we also can create like a door legend, etc. But it may be that we want to make this a bit more automated. Maybe we want it to do something like a door schedule, but it does it as a legend and it uses the doors that are in use in our project. I've always felt as though Revit could be a lot more automated and work a lot faster on legends, and we've added that functionality in. So this functionality will allow us to create legends. It doesn't matter, I know what I'm going to example as a door, but we can do it for any category of object within our project, and we can generate it automatically, and I'll show you how that works. They are very, very clever. We've got some enhanced tagging tools, so we've got the ability to tag the window sill height. I mentioned we've already got the ability to add the parameter in there for the sill height. We can then tag that information, so we can have the tag in there for the sill and head height, and it'll do that automatic. We've got a new structural tag as well. And the structural tag, we can then select a floor makeup, and that's going to come back and it's going to give us all the different materials that are actually listed in that floor as well. And I'll show you how that works shortly. We've got some precast tools in there, okay? So if there's any structural engineers that are using precast tools, then we've actually got some additional controls in here. Now, a few years ago we had the assembly tool added in, and not many people have used the assembly, but if you had, for instance, in here we've got the column with the horns on, which is a separate entity, we can merge that into what we call an assembly. We could merge the whole of that view there into an assembly. We can now generate views for a sheet. Again, this is a function that's been there for a few years, but what it won't do is it won't auto create the views on your sheet. It'll create a sheet, create the views separately. You've still got to set the sheet up. You've still got to drag the views onto that sheet. What this tool does is basically the view sheet generator will automatically create the views, create the sheet, and put the views on the sheet for us. Okay. We've got an ability to exclude and include from schedules, yeah, so there might be certain elements that you don't want to schedule all the time because it's part of an assembly. We can actually control that. We've also got the ability to compute the volume of an assembly as well. So if we want to know the volume of concrete for that assembly, then we can start to get the exact volume back out as well. Okay. Again, another really, really cool tool when it comes to documentation and putting our drawings on sheets. If we want to arrange views on a drawing sheet, we've got, that was added in about 3 or 4 years ago now, we have the layout grid. So we can put a layout grid on top of our title block, and then we can use that to align our views. It's all right, it can work, but maybe we could be more automated. So the arrange tools will actually allow us to align and arrange our views on drawing sheets automatically. And we can arrange them vertically, horizontally, we can go diagonally, we can arrange them by a line, we can arrange them by center point as well. There's some great tools in there, and I'll show you how they work shortly as well. We've also now got the ability as well to link Excel data into our views. So if we've got a spreadsheet with some information on, it doesn't necessarily mean it's almost like a table, but we can link that table in, yeah? And it links it via a DXF, so it creates a DXF file, and then we can pull that view in as a detail. Because it's linked as a DXF and it's linked, later on, if we change the Excel spreadsheet, we can actually very quickly recreate the DXF. The DXF's automatically linked in, so we can actually keep updating it from Excel. Okay. What we can also do as well as linking it, is we now also have this tool for key parameters. So this will allow me to, if you receive a drawing from somebody else, so you receive a model, but within your organization you have a lot of shared parameters that need to be added to all the doors. And it might be that it's someone else's project that you've inherited. They don't have, that project doesn't have your project parameters or shared parameters. This spreadsheet functionality here will allow us to link in all of these parameters. So for instance here, the header there under standard, so the parameter subheading would be hallway. Then what it'll actually do is it will then add paint, white, ceramic pavement and beige sand as properties of wall colour, floor and floor colour into the room or the door or whichever category we want to link that to. Okay. And as you can see there, that's where it's actually pulled them in. Standard in that case, it's the bedroom, I presume that should say bedroom, and it'll pull that actually in, and the details above as well. Okay. So let's have a look and see exactly how the PowerPack works. So here I am in Revit, and I've already got a drawing open. And as you can see at the top, here is the Graitec PowerPack. When you install it, it will actually install a separate ribbon. So all these tools are held in exactly the same place. They're not hidden in different menus. They're all grouped together. Okay, so it's an additional toolbar that it adds. Once you've installed it, you'll probably want to license it. So come over to the Graitec PowerPack. There's the link to the help topics. Okay, about. If you go to the license utility, it will then allow you in there to enter your serial number and your activation code, which, as I say, you should receive. If you don't receive it in the next few days, do get in touch with us, and we can sort out making sure that you do actually get your serial number for that. So the first tool I want to show you is this Family Manager. So if I come into the Family Manager, okay, what we can do is we can link in additional folders. I've actually got one there I've already got, so I'm just going to delete that to start with. So we've got some sample content that's been shipped with the PowerPack. If you don't want the Czech, Polish or Russian content, you can right-click and delete that. It's not a problem. But what we can then do is we can actually add in from our, and I remember where I've put my PowerPack stuff, which would have remembered being good. So if I actually come to my PowerPack folder here, look, I can select a library. So this could be your own internal library, and it will now add in there all the components, okay, that are in that library. If there were subfolders in there, it would have the subfolders in. But more importantly, I can now choose which elements from this library I want. So I'm going to actually just tick all of them. If I then just click Next, it will then say, right, well, okay, this is only available in one size, that's in one size, but this wall extractor fan can be a wall or a ceiling version of it. And it might be I only want the ceiling version, so I can actually choose exactly which size or which version of that I actually want. It's really powerful, and it just means I'm only loading into my project the versions I want. Okay, so we'll cancel that because I don't actually need them loaded in. The next bit, which I haven't mentioned in the PowerPoint, is another tool, which is BIM Connect. Yeah, this links to one of our other products, Advanced Design. If there's anyone listening that's actually using Advanced Design, this will give you direct link between Advanced Design, which is structural package, and Revit. Okay, so it allows us to link, import and export, and also then synchronize. Okay, if anyone's interested in how that works and uses Advanced Design, again, get in touch and we can show you how that works. Moving further on onto our modeling tab, we've now got the Move XY tool. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here. I can select any object. Let's just ungroup these chairs, and I've got an object there. If I actually now go to my PowerPack and I go Move XY, it will give me the ability to move this chair in an XY direction. So I want to move that 1 meter forward and 500 mil in the EY. Okay. So that will actually move it perfectly in that direction. And all I have to do is type the values in. I don't have to select it, choose move it in one direction, choose move it in another direction. Okay, so quite a nice little powerful tool. The next tool we've got is this door side. So I'm just going to launch door side. It's going to look through my project now. It's going to look at all the families that I've actually got in use, and it's going to fetch up all the doors that are currently in use. Yeah, and it will actually now give me all them doors, and it'll tell me which side they're actually linked on. So I've got them all on the left. Okay. If I now go OK, yeah, it's actually now logging the data, the fact that that's the sides. Maybe I'm not going to change anything. If I now go back in, they should all be black. There we go. And if I add any more doors now, so if I add any new doors to my project, then it will come in and it'll say, oh, by the way, this is a new door. I can then double check to make sure that is actually the way that I want it to work. If not, I can then change that as well. Okay. The 3D CAD visibility. Okay, so this is I think this is a real beneficial tool to a lot of people. So what I'm going to do is I need to import a CAD to start with. So let's just go to Insert and let's link in a CAD drawing, and let's go to my PowerPack folder, which is on my here. And in here, I've got a chair which I've downloaded from Autodesk Seek. Okay, and we can pull that in. So if you haven't used Seek before, it's actually on the Insert tab here, look, and we can search Seek for various content. So I'm going to select this. I'm just going to unpin it a second, and we can move that into this demo room. So I now have a chair. If I look over here, it's an imported symbol. Yeah, there's not really much I can do. If I go into the Edit Type properties, the only thing it's got in here is its import units and its scale. Okay, so it's inches, but it's obviously converted it correctly, auto-detected the fact that it was an imperial chair. The problem I've got is I've got no way of adding any identity data to that chair or any of the additional properties that I would probably need within my project. So what I can do is I can go back to my Graitec PowerPack, go to my CAD visibility, go to CAD to RSA, so Revit family, yeah. And now that chair is now, it's named the same as the AutoCAD file, but notice it's now listing it as a generic model. If I now go into edit type, I now have all the identity information that I want to add in there. Obviously it's a generic model. I might actually want that to be furniture, so I can edit that now as a family. Let's change its category to be furniture. Okay, and load that into project. Overwrite the existing version values. That is now furniture. It will now schedule as furniture. And for those of you that don't know how to control the visibility of that object within Revit for the materials, if I go to object styles, yeah, and we go to imported objects, it still knows it's an importing family, but in here I can actually look at all the layers that make up that chair, and we can actually change the material in here. And this will actually affect the way they actually views within our model as well. So we can make it look exactly like a Revit file. Obviously, as I mentioned before, it isn't parametric, it is linked back still to the AutoCAD drawing. If the AutoCAD drawing was updated, then I can go to my CAD visibility and I can go to my RFA update, and it will update that Revit family from its original drawing. The only rule of thumb and the only thing to remember is you need to leave the DWG in the same place. If you move the DWG, it will break that link. Okay. So the next one we've got is the geometry parameters. Okay, so in here I've got the ability to add column height in there. Look, so that's all we need to do. It doesn't add them if you don't want. I could add wall thickness in there. Yeah, click OK. It's added that in. If I now go to my wall, yeah, I now have in here the G wall thickness 312. Yeah, and it will have added that to all the walls. Yeah, so that one's 120, 125. That one's 305. Okay. So each wall now has that parameter, and that parameter can be scheduled, and that's the key fact. We can now pull that information back out later on. Okay. And as I say, there's various other ones. There's the sill and lintel height for our windows. So if I select that now, there's my lintel level and my sill level. Yeah. So that information's been added in there as well. It's all about being able to schedule this information out afterwards, yeah, and everything from the slab elevation, etc. So some really useful tools in there. So the next one I want to move on to is this 3D view. Okay, so let's just go to the 3D view of this building. Now, what I've been able to do in the past is I can select that. We can go to our displace elements, and I can start to pull that up. I could then maybe go to another object, displace that one, and although it's an effective sort of tool, it's a bit of a tedious job to keep doing each one. So what I can actually do is, let's just make that a little bit smaller, is I can actually just come into here, 3D view, level displacement, okay, and what that will do is it's actually taken all the levels in my project and then move them up by a set height, yeah, by 3 meters. Obviously, these walls weren't split. If when walls were split, it would have moved them individually as well. Okay, but I can hide that, and it started to do the exploded views for me. So again, it just helps to speed the process up. Yeah, we can reset it in here as well. We can create auto section boxes for the people that have created auto sections in the past for 3D views. What we can also do in here as well, we can set up our 3D view for each level. Yeah. Now, again, this is something we've always been able to do, but it takes time. So, for instance, I want this to be a 3D representation of a ground floor. I can right-click on my view cube, orientate to view, floor plan, go to ground floor. Yeah, there's my ground floor view. The next thing I need to do is I need to rename it over here. I need to recreate the 3D view again, and then I need to do the same thing for the first floor, second floor, etc. And it's good. It can be done, but it takes time. What I can do is I can come into here. I can now 3D view for each level. Yeah, I can put an offset on. So this is going to go floor to ceiling. So I'm just going to set the top offset at say -750. Bottom offset, leave that as it is. Maybe just move it a little bit down so that we get the floor slabs in. It's up to me if I wanted to. I'll leave it as it is. Okay. And base view default. So the default 3D view. Click OK. And what that's done now is it's now created over here, look, the ground floor, the first floor, the second floor, the roof. It's even done the foundations for me, all in 3D section. Okay, so a very, very quick and easy way to create them views. The next one we've got is the split pipe. So I'm just going to start a new project in here. So let's just start a mechanical project. So as I mentioned before, we have got the fabrication tools that have just started to appear in Revit. They're not brilliant yet, so they've started to add these in, and they will give us lengths of pipe specific to the availability of that pipe. Okay. The problem we've got at the moment with things like ductwork, if I draw a duct, yeah, so there's a nice bit of ductwork drawn in there. This length of duct here, yeah, is nearly 16 meters long. I can't manufacture that. Yeah. And the same thing goes for pipes. Let's put some pipe in here. Let's choose a sensible pipe size. Let's just put some 54mm pipe in there. And maybe we've got some pipe running around there. Maybe that sort of links in as well. Okay. I'm just going to put that to a fine level of detail so we can actually see. So it's put them in, but again, I've still got the issue where this is a piece of pipe that is 8 meters long. Yeah, probably can't get that. So what I can now do is I can now use, if I just, let's do the ductwork first, select all of that. I could do it, in fact, I can do it all at the same time, but we'll do it separately. I can split the pipes. So what this will do is, right, so for rectangular duct, what's the maximum length? For round duct, what's the maximum length? For pipe, what's the maximum length? So for my ductwork, I don't want it, I want it to be in 1500, and it's going to be the same for my round duct. I'm going to set my pipe length in there, so my pipe length is going to be 3 meters. Yeah. Okay. So because I only had the duct selected, it's now divided my ductwork up, yeah, into manufacture specific lengths. Okay. Now it doesn't need to worry about the way that these join, but we do need to worry about the way that the pipe joins, because otherwise it's going to leak. We can't just split that and knock holes in it, can't we? So if I come into here, go to split pipe, and we'll do the same thing. It remembers the setting I've used. I'll click OK. If I now zoom in, not only has it split the pipe, but it's automatically added in a soldered coupling for the joins where it actually needs to. So just a really useful tool to make sure we're now getting objects that are a bit more easy to schedule. And we can schedule these as individual lengths, so we know how many 3 meter lengths we actually need, and it'll even tell us where we need part lengths as well. So very, very useful little tool. Let's just go back to our other drawing. Okay, so auto dimensioning. I'm just going to go to the ground floor here, and we're going to start to have a look at some of the cool tools that are in here for dimensioning. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to come into this view. Yeah, auto dimensioning, and it says please select the wall and the grid. So there's my wall. Yeah. Okay. Oops. Let's just redock that. Hit finish. Yeah. And specify the wall. Specify the start where I actually want it to go. And it's basically now auto dimension the whole of that wall with all the other intersections as well. These are just normal dimensions, so if it does get carried away and it dimensions more than what you actually want in there, there's nothing to stop us coming in and readjusting them. Yeah, we can even come in, they are full dimensions. If I didn't want this dimension in here, we can tab in and delete it. They are Revit dimensions. It's just automating the way in which it generates these dimensions. Okay, so that's our auto dimension. We've got a quick dimension tool. So what I can do is I can go to here, I can draw a model line. Yeah, and I'm going to draw a model line through to there. Okay, I can now go back to my PowerPack, choose my quick dimension, select the line, okay, and it will create a set of dimensions based on that line. And I can move that dimension to wherever I want. Yeah, and you'll notice the model line has disappeared. So it does convert the model line. It doesn't just use the line, it does get rid of that line afterwards. Okay, so again, just a really nice, quick, easy way to start adding dimensions in. If I come back into here, we've got the join dimension that I mentioned before. So if I had dimensions that were staggered all over the place, we can actually join them all into one nice tidy line. I can also go to configure, and this is where I can specify the dimension style that I want to use for each of the join dimension, quick dimension, and auto. Okay. Here's the windowsill height. Yeah, so I can come into here, and if I actually just select this windowsill height, let's just come back in and go sill. Yeah. Show openings of height also. Yeah, we'll go OK. So you can use just a sill or just a height as well. Yeah. And then what it's done is it's actually created this tag. Okay. This is a family tag, so we can change that if you don't like the style of it. If maybe it's using the wrong font style for your organization, we can edit that. Yeah. So it is just a tag which we can update and customize for our needs. Okay. But it does give us the ability quite quickly to tag information that was previously untaggable as such. The structural tag, again, I'm just going to start quickly a new project. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to create a floor, okay, and we'll pop in our structural floor, or any floor for that matter. Let's just put a quick section through there. Let's just put that section in a little bit neater. And if I come into here now, let's have a look at that fine level of detail. If I come into here, yeah, here's my structural tag. I can edit the annotation later on if I want. Yeah. Just get that to put the add annotation. Okay. The floor's got membrane layers in it. It will list the material for every layer except a membrane layer, just with it having a 0 thickness anyway. But it'll just put membrane in to show that that exists. But all the other elements have basically come from the floor makeup, and it's pulled that information out for us as well. And again, we can edit all that later on if we want to as well. Stairline tool. Okay. So over here, as you can see, currently the stair line only comes up to the split, and this split line here is all dependent on the view range. If you change your view range, the hidden elements of the stair increase or decrease depending on where your cut plane is in your view range. Okay. So what I can do is I can go to my stair tool. I can just select them elements. It doesn't really matter the fact that it's got rooms in there, because it's detected now the stair look, and it's put the line up to them, and it's drawn the next line there. If it was a continuous stair, it would draw it all the way to the top. Yeah, so here on my first floor, you can see that's still working, but notice the annotation is actually correct even on this view, even though we're now on a slightly separate view. So we're now getting our line. Here we can actually adjust that as well to the top as well, using the same thing. We've got an edit mark tool. The edit mark tool will actually allow us to modify the syntax of positions. Yeah, so we can select all our tags, and we can start to move them all in the same directions at the same time. Again, it'll only move certain tags. There's various syntax that we can type into there. Do have a play with that, and you'll see exactly how that works. So the next thing we've got is our precast tools. So let's have a look at this. So the view sheet generator. So I actually have another drawing that's open somewhere. Let's have a look. Here we go. So I've got a little bit of a concrete structure set up. It's not in an assembly at the moment. Everything's just an individual component. Now, one of the things we can do is if I just filter out my analytical surfaces, so just the structural elements here, we can actually create an assembly. It's a bit like a group, but it creates it as an assembly. And the assembly is listed over here. Yeah. So the one thing that we could do with an assembly then is once you've got your assembly, you can create the views, you can create a sheet, but it's not fully automated. So what I can actually do is, if I go to here and go view sheet generator, it will say, right, so which views are you interested in? So I'm just going to go with these three. Yeah. I can then tell it the drawing sheet which I wish to use. Okay. I can start to give it its name. It's going to use the assembly name, so it's going to be called structural column 001. Yeah. Sheet view. For each view that I actually tick, it will then give me the ability to start to look at how this works. Okay, so where I want it, is it in Revit, etc. I can even look at the viewport titles. So do I want it with a line, without a line, etc. and then click OK, and it creates a sheet. Now there's two reasons why I like this. If you create a sheet in assembly, it wants to create the sheet down here. Using our tool, it creates the sheet here. It creates the sheet where all the other sheets are. Yeah. So that was actually the analytical model that I chose for that view. But I could go back into my 3D view. Let's just select the assembly again, use the tool again. Yeah. And this time, where instead of having it set up here at the top here for the template for the analytical, let's just go to the architectural sections, set that again to the A1 sheet, click OK. It's now created it again. This time it's actually created our views and placed them on the sheet as well. Okay. So let's just go back to the PowerPack. As I mentioned before, we've also got the ability to exclude from schedule, include it back in the schedule, and also compute the volume of an assembly as well in there. So quickly moving on to the arrange tools. Okay, so I'm just going to close that down. So if I come in back into here, and let's just go to one of my drawing sheets that I've already got set up in here. Boom, 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 boom. Let's go on to this sheet. Okay, and we'll just delete that. So I've got some views in here. These are some 3D section views that I've created. Yeah, and I might want to now start look at ways of aligning them. So I've dragged them all onto a sheet, and I want to auto arrange them. So if I actually go to the just select them views, go to the PowerPack. Over here on our documentation, if I go to arrange, I've got arrange align vertical by left. So I do that, and it says, right, which one of them do you want to align to? We know what you want to align, but which is the one is not going to move. So I can select the one I don't want to move, and it will start to align them. Okay. Notice that the spacing, the vertical spacing has changed because I dragged them all over the way, but I'll show you a neat little trick to control that as well in a second. So I could do the same thing again. Let's just select these views, and I can arrange them to the right. Yeah, and same sort of thing. It'll all then move them to the right hand edge. So this edge is now the edge that's matched. Yeah. Notice it matches it to the far point, so it's actually using the edge of the foundation footing here, so it is slightly out of alignment in that one. But there's nothing to stop me selecting all them and going arrange vertical by center line. Yeah, so you'll notice this one's now moved back in. So again, we can go for the center line of the object as well. Let's just move these out of the way again. So we've then got the horizontal equivalence. Yeah, exactly the same as a vertical. But then we've got this really nice one. Arrange along a line. Okay. So what I can do is I can go to annotation. It has to be annotation. You can't use a model line here because we're in paper space. Technically out, we're in a sheet view. So I can actually put in a line. Yeah. In fact, let's just do one across here to start with. Yeah. And then what I can do is I can select the views that I want. Come into here, go arrange along a line, select the line, and it will then arrange them along the line. So the center of each view, and it's actually arranged them in a line along that edge. Okay. Again, this is a good sort of way of moving them vertical as well. So we might want all them views to go vertically. Again, back to annotate, detail line, pop in a detail line. It'll probably put these in out of order, but you'll get the idea. So arrange along a line, and we can place the line in there as well. Okay, so these are just all different ways in which we can now control the way the views are working. And the other one we've got as well is we've actually got an auto arrange. Yeah. So if we do auto arrange, you don't need anything selected. It'll basically take all the views and it will auto arrange them views on the sheet. Whether that's plans, sections, elevations, it will automatically then rearrange the drawing sheet automatically. It might not be perfect. It might not get it right first time every time. But it does mean that they're all there, they're all neat, and we can start to move them around. Now, the next thing that I want to show you is the legends. As I mentioned before, this is sort of one of my favorite tools that they've actually added to the PowerPack. I think the functionality in here, the benefits is really, really cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a new legend because you have to have a starting point with this. So if I go to View, and I go to legend, and let's create a new legend. Okay, it's to scale, so we can specify a scale. It gives us a blank piece of paper. If I go to annotate my components, and now start to add a legend component, and in here in this list we have all the items. So every single item family that is loaded, we actually have the legend version of it. The legend version is it just copies the 2D representations of all the objects. So if I came into here, let's start with a door. So let's do a door elevation. Yeah. So that's in plan. I'm just going to change that to the elevation front, and there's my door. Okay. So I can place my door, and I now need to build up the structure of the legend around it. So it's going to be in like a table form. So I'm going to go to my detailed line. I'm going to be a little bit messy here. So that's going to be the main part of it. We're going to have a column of some information there, column of some information there, and a header. Yeah, I know I've drawn lines over top of lines, which I always moan at people for doing, but for the sake of speeding here, we'll do that. So I'm going to pull that door there. Now what I can do is I can start to add in here various things. So I could add text in here if I want, just normal text. So I could say, right, let's just go to annotate, go to my text tool. This is going to be elevation. Then I could put a header in here for, say, family and type. Okay. Oops. There we go. And then I can now start to look at our PowerPack. And in here we've got under legends various things. So I can add a legend parameter, and I'm going to have a parameter just here. Yeah. So this parameter I can set later on what value that's going to be. And as you can see from what's above, I want that to be the family and type. Okay. So we can go back to the Graitec PowerPack. I can come into legends again, and now I want to add a dimension frame. Okay. So this is a frame that I'm going to link back to the door, because each door is going to be a different size, but I want to have a dimension around it. So I'm actually going to come in and just place a couple of dimensions on this box. Yeah, and you'll notice this box is a parametric box. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull this over here, and I'm just going to align this now, this object, yeah, to the door. Okay. So there's my dimensions in there, and let's just select all that and just move that into the middle so it's a bit tidier. Okay. So I've now got that in there. Yeah. So now what I can do is I can create and modify the legend unit. And what that'll do now is it'll say, right, it's saying select the geometry of the draft legend. So that is the object that I want. Okay. Let's cancel that a second. Let's just select all of it. So select the whole thing. Okay. So now, what category am I doing it by? Now this is where it gets clever, because just because I've used a door to start with doesn't mean to say that I couldn't change this to window. Yeah, and I can basically create templates for my legends and the way that I want this to work. But I'll keep it simple, and I'll keep it with doors. So I'm going to create a legend of the doors that are currently in use within this project. So I just want doors. Okay, I could even have it multi-category as well. Then it says, right, select the parameters that I want to use. Now, for those of you that are au fait with Revit, you'll realize that this is very much like, it's looking a bit like the schedule, isn't it? So I can now say, right, what's the parameter? I'm interested in family and type. Okay. I'm going to click OK. It then says, now, which elements do I want to repeat? Now, I don't want the header to repeat. So the bits that I want is, I want them bits to repeat. Okay. And they're going to repeat vertically. So I want them to go down. Okay. So that's now that first pass set up. The next thing I want to do is I can come into here. I can now modify the parameters. I can copy the legend unit if I want to. So we add more parameters if we want. But in reality, I just want to now create and modify the main legend. So this will now come up. Okay. It's going to be doors. Okay. This filter. It's going to space it vertically. I want it spacing it 3.5 meters apart. You've got to remember this is to scale. So it's 1 to 50. So this is now the scaling of my spacing. Okay. I want to select the elements in the header. Yeah. So what I can do is I can select my header, hit finish. That's the header element set. I can set the paper size that I want it to go on. In this case, A3. portrait, etc. Click OK. Fingers crossed, this should now automatically generate me my legend. Okay, there we go. Yeah. So what it's actually done is ignore the fact that that's a little bit weird looking. That's because that is a curtain wall door, and curtain wall doors tend to always list themselves as if there's no curtain panel there, because they are fully parametric. There's always be an exception with curtain panel doors. But all my other doors that are currently in use in this project have now been listed. The dimensions have automatically updated themselves around it, as has the family name and the family type. Yep. So my text is duplicated. This is fully automated. I think that's absolutely brilliant. It's even editable afterwards because we might want it all to be closer together. Yeah. However you want to customize this is fine, but the amount of work involved in doing it manually, especially for very large legends, is huge. I've always felt this was a functionality that Revit missed. We now have this. You guys now have this within the PowerPack. Brilliant, brilliant tool. Okay, so that's our legend. So the next thing we've got is we've got a tool here to export all our drawing sheets, yeah, to DWG, yeah. So what this will do is we've always been able to do this, yeah, but again, it's been sheet by sheet, and there's been issues with sheet sizes, paper size, etc. So what this allows us to do is it allows us to basically automate the whole process of exporting all of our drawing sheets, yeah, to whichever version of DWG we want. Okay, and again, we can still use the export settings from Revit. It's not adding any extra functionality. It's just automating the functionality that's there and just making it more usable. Okay, I can click OK, and that will export all my drawing sheets out to whichever folder I decided where I wanted to save it. Okay, so I won't export it because obviously it takes a little bit of time to export them. So the final thing that I want to show you is, let's just go back to my ground floor, is the ability that we've got to link Excel, yeah, and also the key parameters. So let's start off with the link Excel. Okay, so what I can do is I can go link Excel, and it says, right, choose the Excel file that I'm interested in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into here. Let's just go to my D drive. Let's go to my PowerPack, and in here I've got a couple. So I've got one called Book 1. So it's an Excel spreadsheet, Book 1. Okay. The relative path is fine, because that'll mean that later on, if it's relative, if this Excel moves, as long as it's in the same folder as it is now, or in the subfolder, in a folder within the project folder of Revit, it'll find it. We can then got the link options in there, so I can now select the sheet that I want. So if it was multiple sheeted spreadsheet, I can choose that. Do I want to link the entire sheet, or is it just a range of cells that I'm interested in? Yeah. As it is here, it is just the entire sheet, so I'm going to click OK. And this will now create a DXF by the same name, Book 1, Sheet 1, yeah, within that folder. So then I can go Insert, I can link CAD, just change that to DXF. Here's the DXF that I've just created now at 1119. Click on there, okay. Let's just unpin that, and it's actually pulled in the data from that spreadsheet, okay. And if I was just to go to Excel, and let's go to Book 1, okay, there is the data, Simon, Fred, Mark, etc. Okay, and again, if I was to update that, we can then rerun the process. It's going to automatically update the DXF. We just force a reload. Again, it's going to update that. Okay, so we've got a link back from Excel to make sure that the information that we've got in that spreadsheet stays up to date and is correct. The final thing I just want to show you is the key parameters. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up the parameters file that I've created. Okay, so the parameter is called key parameter. Then we've got dependent parameters moving down. So if I choose a value A, that'll be the key parameters, and it will automatically fetch in a parameter called A1, A2, and A3. Okay, so let's show you how that actually works. So what I'm going to do is, the first and the key thing is to select the object that you want to link them parameters to. So I want them parameters to link to doors. Okay, so in There's no key parameters in here. You'll see there's no ones called A, B, C or anything like that. If I now go to Graitec PowerPack, come into here, go to the key parameters file. Okay, it understands its doors, so there's no key parameter file loaded, so we want a new one. Specify the spreadsheet, which is this parameter XLS. Okay, again, tell it which sheet. It's automatically read the key parameter. Do I want these to be type parameters or instance parameters? Do I want to group them? How do I want to group them? So identity data. So again, I can list where I actually want these parameters to go. Click OK. Yeah. Then we've got the key value. Yeah. So this is now saying, do I want row A, volume A, B, C, D? Yeah. So it's saying which row am I interested in under key parameter, which one of these rows is the one that I want for this particular case. So I'll say I'm just interested in value A. Okay. Click OK. If I now come into my doors, I now have the dependent properties in there. Look. So it's listed them under constraints. That's where I told it to list. Okay. So it's automatically now started to propagate information into our families directly from the spreadsheet. And again, because it creates these as project parameters, these are all schedulable elements. Okay. So the PowerPack is a very useful set of tools. We've spent quite a bit of time looking at what customers' requirements are and adding in the functionality and sort of like tools that have been requested. Now, one of the things that we do ask, and we'd like to give you input into this as well, we are going to be developing this and it is going to be growing and developing. If anyone has any sort of requests as a user, well, get in touch with us and let us know. You can either drop them at in the questions and answers at the end of here, or feel free to drop me an email. There's my email address there, and we'll get these off to our developers and see if it's actually functional, if it's a functional feature that we feel can be added in. But obviously, there's certain requests which the software won't even allow us to do. As I mentioned at the beginning, we're not adding extra functionality. What we're doing is we're automating tasks within the software. So a very powerful set of tools in the Revit PowerPack. I hope that's been really useful and you can see the benefit in the use of this tool. Again, it's our way, it's a free tool to you guys that are on subscription with us, and it's our way of saying thank you for your loyalty to us. So enjoy using the PowerPack. Any problems or any issues, again, feel free to get in touch. And thank you very much for your time this morning. Thank you very much.